I'm audible too as well, Kushagra, right?
Yes, yes. So, hello everyone. We are live with another episode of The Abstract. Today we have Josh from Neithermind, James from Across Protocol, and Pratik from Octo. And today we are discussing on ERC 7683. What are cross-chain intents and why why do we need that in crypto? So, just before beginning on our round of questions, I would quickly like you guys to introduce yourselves and what do you do at the respective protocols here. Anyone can go live. Go first. Pratik, you wanna go first?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, this is Pratik. I work with Octo, so I've been leading product at Octo and building currently all the integrations and the platform related things over here. Been in crypto for from over like more than 5 years now. Been working with CoinDCX, building on the CFI side, and now working on building like the products that we have at the DeFi front as well, and trying to revolutionize and bringing on chain like masses on chain in India. So that's what we've been working on. So yeah, excited to be here on this stream and discuss today. Yeah.
Amazing. So excited to have you here. James, do you wanna go next?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. Great to meet you all. I'm James, head of marketing at Across Protocol. Just really bullish on the whole concept of unifying Ethereum and the role that ERC 7683 plays in that. Excited to dive into that with you all today, but really, honestly, just more excited to see like I tweeted earlier today that unifying Ethereum will take a unified effort. It can't be any single siloed team that does it. That is kind of anti-unification, right? So really excited to be in a group, in a room of people where we all are on the same mission, working toward the same goal. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Amazing to have you here, James. Josh, you wanna go next?
Yeah, hey everyone. Thanks for hosting, Kushagra. I'm Josh. I'm a group manager at Nethermind, focusing on blockchain infrastructure and interoperability. I'm really excited to dive into 7683 today.
Amazing. Welcome to the podcast. So, with this, I'll jump into my first question. Very simple. What is ERC 7683 and how would you explain it to someone who just entered blockchain? James, you want to take the first jab?
Yeah, that sounds good. It's I never know who should go first, but ERC 7683 is an open standard that we developed, the Across team developed with the Uniswap team not too long ago, and really the whole concept is around the key term is intents or intentions, looking at user intents and understanding what is it that they intend to do when they click this button and they say, I don't know, for example, buy NFT. And when a user is clicking that button, there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that are all the steps that need to be fulfilled for that end kind of intention to be filled. In the same way that we're on this live stream and I had to join, I clicked the button. I don't know actually all of the things that happen behind the scenes. What web servers are we connected to? Like, how is this video being hosted? How are we streaming to Twitter and also here? Like, there's a lot of things that happen that are required to fill that intention. But when I clicked join, I was able to join. I think that's a very like zoomed out, very simple way to think about like what is 7683. It's the concept of taking a user's intention and filling that in the infrastructure or under the hood.
Amazing. So it's basically intentions on what you want to do on blockchain. That's amazing. Josh, you want to go next?
Yeah, I think James summarized it really well. Maybe just to add on to that, and I'm sure we'll dive into this in the future in a few minutes. 7683 is all about connecting those intents to solvers, these third parties that end up fulfilling those intents. So the user doesn't have to care about the actual underlying details, as James mentioned, about which chains or what liquidity sources to use. The 7683 allows for solvers to compete to fulfill these intents using whatever mechanisms the solvers are able to are familiar with or have expertise with. So these solver third parties are also a key component of 7683.
Pratik, you wanna add on to it?
Yeah, I think it's beautifully summarized already by James in terms of how they thought about it and what the intents actually mean. So at least just to take a like one more as an perspective from that, at least what I think of 7683 is a very critical, I would say, step in the direction of unifying Web 2 and Web 3, right? Actually, till now, all the things that people have been doing on Web 3, people need to understand what the backend infra is, right? What is happening at the backend, what are steps being taken, what a chain I'm on, multiple plethora of things that they need to understand before this, right? Now there's the first step where we actually taken, and how do we make it experience on Web3 exactly like what they have been doing on Web2, right? That is just click the buttons, right? Don't even need to understand what's happening at the back end, what is required for them to complete that intention, right? I just want to do that thing, just let me do that thing, right? I think that's what 7683 is, that bridge between Web2 and Web3 that we've created to make that seamless and omnichannel experience that we always keep talking about. Yeah.
Amazing. So, very well explained, everyone. So, just I'll take a step back and I would want to ask you guys, why is interacting with multiple blockchain at the same time so difficult? Why is it so complicated? And why do we need the standards? Since there are multiple blockchains working around there, we have seen billion projects who have already built $1 billion protocols, but why do this thing that sounds so obvious is still missing, and why it is needed? So Josh, do you want to go first on this?
Sure. Yeah. I think, you know, if anyone's ever had to bridge across multiple chains to accomplish some action, to use a specific app, I mean, then you've kind of experienced this problem. You have to understand which chain you're on, how to bridge, preferably using some bridge that you that matches your security profile, that fits what risks you're willing to undertake, and with some bridges to some L2s in Ethereum, especially, you need to wait 7 days in order to withdraw safely. And if you're willing to take on more risk or additional risk assumptions, then additional safety assumptions, then you can expedite that process a little bit, but that can be risky. So 7683 kind of really helps improve the UX of this bridging process, especially moving liquidity between chains. It can be used for much more than that, I believe. In the future, we'll see much more generalized intents being fulfilled with 7683. But in the immediate future, I think that this kind of bridging aspect of current Web3 UX will be a thing of the past in the not too distant future. Yeah, I think that this bridging UX is the key improvement that I see 7683 bringing. James, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I actually I love what you said. I would just copy and paste that. The only thing maybe I would add is, and we talked about it already very briefly, and I know it will be a core theme of our conversation. It's the solver network, right? Or at Across, we call them relayers. It's maybe those terms are interchangeable, but this solver network in a typical bridge, there's typically one or two solvers, and so the best way I can describe it is like visually, if this is your solver, and between every chain, imagine there are little icons floating around this marker here, and you have to bridge to the solver and then bridge to the next chain, or bridge to the solver and bridge to the chain. What that looks like is a very centralized kind of hinging point on a single solver. And in my mind, I just think about like the core ethos of what does it mean to be building in Web3? Why are we here working in blockchain? What is like the very core value proposition that we are all building on? Sometimes I think we forget about it, but it's this concept of decentralization. If you have a single solver, that means all of the potential risk falls on the decisions of that single solver. And so if fees want to go up, that solver has a monopoly and they can raise fees, and that affects every user. But if you create a decentralized marketplace of solvers, right now we have, I think, a little over 30 relayers that are operating. Like, what that means is that you're creating essentially a capitalist marketplace where competition keeps fees in check. Because if one solver decides to jack their fees, all that means is they're not going to be able to get any orders because the marketplace will favor competition. And that always benefits the user. The more competition you have, the best example I can think about is like when internet, I remember when cable internet was brought to our neighborhood for the first time, there was only one solution. It was just one business, one company. As more and more came, prices went down and speed and technology improved. I think it's the same concept here. We're bringing this idea of saying, no, the marketplace should be open. Anyone can come and run a relayer or a solver, and that competitive marketplace is what really ends up benefiting the users. It gives them better speed, better cost, and better security all the way around.
That's amazing. Pratik, do you want to add to this?
Yeah, I think that clearly summarizes why 7683 is a better solution in terms of decentralizing it. But just taking a step back on your question, Kushagra, I think what you're trying to understand maybe why the current experience is difficult for the users to use multiple chains, right? I think it's inherently what I feel personally, every chain solves some purpose, right? Whenever that founder tried to build that specific chain or specific ecosystem, they're trying to solve for certain problems, right? But while solving for that problem, it has always been how to scale that, whatever the metrics are. It has been very created in very silos, right? When they created those in silos, they never cared about the entire ecosystem in general, how the user would be actually, if you, because user, you can't say that user is belonging to Optimism chain or Arbitrum chain or so, right? User wants to use whatever the dApps out there, whatever the use cases out there, he wants to use that, right? But chains were not created in that way. Ironically. So I think that's why for a user, when he goes to use any chain, he needs to understand, okay, I need to have liquidity on this chain. I need to pay gas fees and certain tokens to use that chain and all, right? So for the user, it becomes very difficult right now to use those multiple chains because I just can't keep $2 on this chain, $100 on that chain, and always keep thinking about what are the bridging solutions out there? How do I move my liquidity from this place to other place? So in that way, it just hinders the user's experience, and they get stuck to maybe just one chain or one protocol in itself, right? Because I have to use some other protocol, then that just creates anxiety on my mind that these are the 10 steps that I have to do even I have to use that dApp in particular, right? I think that's the multiple reasons. That's just some of the reasons which are listed, but there are multiple more reasons which just makes that experience for the users to use protocols across chains very difficult because it adds too many steps in their mind and anxiety, of course, of using or doing each of those steps, right? And that's where I think making that decentralized via the ERC 7683 without even user understanding what's happening at the back end, just unifying the entire universe at the back and making that experience for the user sort of chainless, right? That's what we always imagine blockchain to be and Web3 to be for the user. So that's why I think that's where we're moving with this. Yeah.
I want to add on to that critique. Like when I think about like onboarding the masses, I always use my dad as an example. And dad, if you're listening, it's not an offense to you, but like with the way that the fragmented ecosystem is set up today, there's so many things that a new user has to learn in order to be able to operate on chain safely. And
Yes.
we all have had, if you've been here long enough, you've learned a lot of things the hard way. I have clicked buttons I shouldn't have clicked in the past. I've learned things the hard way too. But in my mind, when I think about, just to double down on what Pratik said, a unified experience means less clicks. It means less points of vulnerability, less opportunities to make a mistake. And I think that's something that's we don't talk about maybe enough in this concept of intents and 7683. We think about the seamless experience for the typical Web3 user, but that's also a safety and security and onboarding issue for a brand new user, or maybe someone like from my parents' generation that they're not quite as tech savvy. They might be more susceptible to falling for scams. This is something that removes that barrier. If they're in a dApp and they click, purchase NFT, they don't have to leave and go find the correct bridge to bridge the funds and move things around. It can just happen without giving that extra kind of potential vulnerability.
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
right.
Yes, like I guess a new generation of crypto would never experience the pain we have seen so far. So, and
I hope not. Yeah, I hope not.
Yes. So like like from what I understood by now is like it's basically freedom and moving across the chains in terms of liquidity, in terms of capital, but like intents can be anything, like intents can be non-financial too. So what are the use cases like obviously the one of the biggest use cases are DeFi for 7683. Like that's what is the biggest solve for. But what are the practical use cases in DeFi or beyond DeFi you think a 7683 would fit best in? Like, Pratik, do you want to start this?
Yeah, sure. So I would say 7683, what it's solving for is just making everything on like just omni-chain, right? User don't even need to know that there's some chain which is existing on which he's doing that action, right? And we know, at least maybe just I would love to talk about India as an example, right? Indian ecosystem, if you just look about it, there are a lot of great builders out there in Web 2, right? People have built a lot of good apps out there which are used by millions of users, and they are very good at creating those user experiences on the Web 2 side of it stuff, right? But as soon as that comes on the Web3 side of stuff, and if they have to onboard, let's say, millions of users for any specific use case or any gaming, for example, they want to maybe make people onboard to that. It's just very difficult to get people onboarded onto chain right now that they don't even adopt to it. They just feel maybe there's a lot of effort needed at their end, plus at the user end, to even use something for whatever use case they are building on, right? So just taking at that example, if you just think about it, now if that experience for the developers becomes so easy, and for the users they don't even need to understand what that there's some chain which is existing at the background, right? I have some funds existing, I just on ramp on any of the chain, just give me some button to just on ramp my fiat onto any chain which is out there. And whatever use case you're solving, just maybe think of an example. Let's say I would take a very specific example of cricket, as a cricket prediction market, right? Cricket is a most popular game in India, and there's a lot of good Web 2 games out there who have solved for building that experiences for people to predict who will win that cricket match, right? Or something like that. So now that developer doesn't need to worry about whether build on Solana chain or whether build on Arbitrum chain or Optimism chain, whatever it is, right? He just build that use case on the chain. Is user is able to just on ramp that fiat on which is the best possible, I would say the cheapest possible, the most liquid option available for him to just on ramp onto the blockchain, and just clicks that button to use that prediction market out there, right? In a very decentralized way, of course, on that side. So I'd say all those use cases which were very chain centric, or I have to constrain on something chain I have to build on because that's supposed to be say higher TPS, but maybe doesn't have a very high liquidity, for example, right? Now as a developer, I don't need to worry about that. I just solve for my use case in terms of which chain supports my use case best, and the users can on ramp their liquidity on whichever chain they feel comfortable on to in terms of liquidity provide, or the geographies which support some chains better in terms of liquidity and all. It just becomes too much compatible because it's everything's interoperable after that, right? Now user just onboard on X chain, the game is on Y chain, and he's just able to use X to Y interoperability in a very seamless way in just a single click. So all those experiences, of course, apart from the DeFi use case that we talk about, like cross chain swaps and all, it just becomes so seamless with the 7683 experience because liquidity movement is just so like behind the scenes now. Yeah, I think we'd love to know like more from James and Josh. What do they think about the use cases and all? So yeah.
Yeah, I think James might actually be the perfect one for this because his company is kind of building a use case for 7683. I think one thing that maybe I can add here, and then James can add a lot more color, is 7683 is really just a standard that solver networks can implement, and this will hopefully help us from avoid seeing a lot of the same fragmentation that we currently see in the L2 landscape. And avoid seeing that in the solver landscape. So solvers, for example, won't have to implement, or have multiple implementations if they want to participate in multiple different solver networks. But I think James can dive into this in a lot more detail since this is part of what Across is building.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. It's really interesting because we're in this new kind of advent, this new frontier of technology that we all call Web3. But in a lot of ways, I think we're still behind Web 2 and the user experience that we've grown accustomed to. An example I use a lot is like the one-click buy experience on Amazon.com. Like you can literally set up the card you want to use, the shipping address that's your default, and as you're shopping, you can just click buy and it instantly takes care of it. And 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, the package arrives. That concept, I think, is something that the general population is very used to. This experience of one click, action happens, I get the result. That's probably in my mind what I would translate as the most needed use case for the average user today is when we're thinking about bridging, for example. 7683 doesn't replace intent, or doesn't replace bridging. It actually, I think what it does is it kind of supercharges bridging. It gives the user the ability to have this, like we talked about, this decentralized network of relayers that offers speed, better cost, security. Now we've talked about that. I think probably everyone has a decent concept of like, okay, we get what intents mean when you're thinking about bridging. Think about it in maybe a slightly more complex use case. So I love OpenSea. I use OpenSea a lot for buying NFTs. I come from an NFT background, and this example maybe is one that will make sense to a lot of folks because we see a lot of new chains that come out and they enter the NFT ecosystem sometimes really, really well, and they bring a lot of excitement. Every chain has a CryptoPunks derivative or version of CryptoPunks, right? And so if I want to buy the latest CryptoPunks on Base, but I don't have enough ETH on Base, but I do have enough ETH and it's spread across multiple chains, what would it look like if I didn't have to manually say, okay, I'm going to go take my Arbitrum ETH, move it over, take my mainnet ETH, move it over, take my Optimism ETH, move it over? What if all of that could happen just like when I go to Amazon.com and I just click buy NFT, and it automatically selects all of the chains that pools that ETH and then executes the transaction. And if you take that as your base, now you can start to realize like there's so much power in utilizing intents for the end user. And really that's kind of our goal. Like we, at the end of the day, if we're successful at a cross, but also I think if we're all successful in unifying Ethereum, the end user won't actually know what 7683 is. They won't ever hear about the concept of intents. That will become a developer language that will just be infrastructure, but the end user, they won't even know what a cross is because we'll just be natively integrated onto whatever app they're interacting in, and they will just have that smooth, seamless user experience that everything is just happening behind the scenes. And the quote that I think captures this the best is, it's by James Clear: the highest level of mastery is simplicity. And so we make it very complicated. The technology is very robust, but the user experience, they just see the very simple result of I clicked it and it worked. And that's the end goal. That's kind of the holy grail we're after.
Amazing. Like great examples, guys. So my next question would be like James, you were like you and across team, you guys were involved in working on 7683 in the background. How did you guys come to the idea? How was the execution? Pratik, Josh, you guys have seen enough number of develop the real world blockchain systems across chain. Now we see 7683 getting adopted to 35 plus protocols, if I'm not wrong. It's still counting, like new are adding every day, but last I checked was at least for 35. And Solana, Octo is developing the same implementation of 7683 on Solana. More blockchains will join. So how early are we in this solution? How close are we in seeing 7683 as a unified solution for the industry? James, would love to hear it from you first.
Oh, that's such a tricky question. Here's what I'll give a very honest take. If unifying Ethereum is a mountain, we've just begun the first ascent. And I think even once we make it to the top of this mountain and unify Ethereum, how many alt EVMs, L1s, how many different chains are there? As you're talking, SVM, having Solana adopt 7683 will be a big step. But then you have the Move ecosystem with folks like Say and Aptos. You have many different ecosystems that are coming out that are further fragmenting the blockchain. And so when I think about how far are we on this journey, it's almost like in the Lord of the Rings, we're really in chapter 1, maybe chapter 2. Like we've got the foundation. We know where we're going. We can see it afar off, but the journey is just beginning. And the best example that I can give is understanding that 7683 is just one of the characters in Lord of the Rings, but it's not one person that makes the journey. It's a whole team of people. There are other standards like EIP 7702 and chain abstraction, wallet abstraction. Like there's all of these different components that I think will need to come together in order to kind of make the climbing of this mountain and eventually summiting this mountain possible. So the honest answer is we're early, but we've made massive strides. And I think that's a really good sign because the space does move fast. And so even though it feels like we're really early, I don't think we're too far off to actually accomplishing that goal.
Amazing. George, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think that I'll really just echo what James said. I think that this is a step forward. I think that 7683 is definitely helpful in achieving the vision that James just outlined, but interoperability is really difficult, not just at a technological level. It's just as much of a social consensus problem, because we have to agree on these standards and actually accept them and use them. So I think that it's a step in the right direction, and it'll be exciting to see how the space develops over the course of 2025 and 26.
I know we have a script, but what Josh just said about the social kind of, it doesn't matter if the technology is perfect if users don't adopt it. And I think there's something that's interesting that in this conversation, we're bringing up Solana, but if you look at crypto timeline, like it's often ETH versus Solana. And that's something that I think is not a sustainable mindset if we are truly working toward unification. And so if you're listening to this today and you're a Solana maxi, you hate ETH, secretly though, I guarantee you've opened an ETH wallet. Like you've played with Ethereum. I don't know anyone who's a Solana maxi that hasn't at least played. And same with ETH. If you're a ETH maxi, I know secretly you've got Phantom Wallet downloaded and you're playing on the side. I know you are. What would it look like if we let go of some of those preconceived notions that it's us versus them, and we say, no, it's us united together versus any other technology that's centralized, or the mindset of us disrupting the old financial system? Like that's actually the real battle, not this ETH versus Solana. It's actually all of us, blockchain versus this really broken, corrupt financial system.
Yeah.
I think very well said, James. I think it should never have been this versus that, or be A versus B or something like that. But that's how our industry has been, because everyone has their own vested interest in terms of how they are growing and how the financial incentives align to that. But to, I think, take it in that way, that's where I think, as you said, account abstraction, wallet abstraction, chain abstraction, and then 7683, all these plays a very critical part in simplifying things for the user, right? Because that's where the user experience lies, and that's where it helps user, and it grows the pies for everyone, and not just for Ethereum or Solana. It just grows pies for everyone, because user would ultimately be using the final use cases which are out there and can be on any chain, whatever they like to do at that point in time, whatever interests them, they would be just able to access that seamlessly, right? And a very clear example, I would say, let's say currently we see in our C5 platform, we're integrated Web3, right? So in our C5 platform, we integrated Web3 in a way that is completely abstracted for the users to do, right? They are pure Web2 users who have been just buying or selling some crypto tokens on your C5 exchange. And what we did try to do for them is just abstract out the chain from the background and use all the abstracted mechanism that we have built internally right now at the Octo to make that experience seamless for them. And what we see right now, the users have funds distributed across chains, And during a transaction, they don't even know which chain they're interacting with. It just happens seamlessly on click of the buttons without them knowing whether they need to keep a gas token on Ethereum chain or Optimism chain or Solana chain or whatever the chain is, right? They heard about the Pengu token today, it is getting airdrop, people are talking about it, they just go and click button and just transfer the fund and they're able to buy that token. Exactly the CFI experience they were used to and they wanted to do. And that's why you're seeing the volumes are just completely distributed, right? It's not that I'm just doing transaction on Solana, I'm just doing transaction on Arbitrum. It's just completely distributed based on what's trending on that particular day. Maybe let's say base is picking up because of some AI agents, virtuals is doing something great. So all the volumes is transferred to that. All the Solana funds are moving seamlessly over there. And that's how it should have been, right? What users want to do on that day, it just happens seamlessly. I don't care. It's a base ecosystem or Solana ecosystem. I'm just interested in something to do. So that's why we're seeing. I think that's where I think 7683 plays a very critical part. And I would say we are very early to it. We have made very good improvements in terms of how the user experience should be and ideally is. And we are sort of there in terms of at least solving for the retail. What I would love to see more going towards is solving it, let's say, for more complex users and maybe moving more higher amount of funds as well. I think that's what the next step definitely once we get comfortable with current limits that we have, current limitation that we have in terms of the risk management, all with 7683. Once we solve for that, I think we would be able to onboard institutions as well. So they also become very used to in terms of using this seamlessly, and they also don't care about chains that they have to move their funds onto, and everything just happens at the back end by using the clearing and whatever like next things we'll build on top of that to do it. Yep.
So that's like amazing explanation, guys. So basically, from till now, what I understand is that 7683 is giving like a rise to abstraction age, where now the new age of blockchain apps would come. That's uh, like with a superior user experience, with more clarity on how users can migrate here, with less complexity, less number of steps. But this is also giving rise to intent centric architectures in blockchain, like the apps, intent centric apps that are created out just to use blockchain multi-chain in different ways. So what do you guys think about that? Like, how would Web3 landscape look like in few years from now when we have everything abstracted? 7683 is a standard. Like, what kind of apps and what kind of Web3 landscape you guys envision?
Yeah, I guess I can go first here. I think one thing I'm really excited about is allowing application developers to not be constrained to choosing a particular chain because there's already liquidity on that chain, but choosing a chain or even building their own chain because it offers the best underlying infrastructure for their application. Because if then they can hook up to whatever it may be, across protocol, other solver networks, other interoperability solutions, and users won't be and that application will be able to get liquidity and users seamlessly because these interoperability solutions abstract everything away from the user. Today, an application probably, in order to be successful, needs to choose a chain where there's already liquidity, where there's already a lot of users, because the barrier to switching chains is so high. So that's one thing I'm really excited about, is allowing application developers to build and improve their applications by deploying on chains that have infrastructure that supports their applications use case. And I think that'll enable us to see a lot more interesting applications in the future.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty interesting. If you think about it, what all things can be built once 7683 is there, like it's out there, right? So I would say 7683 is just a block which has sort of unified the liquidity across the systems now. And as Josh mentioned and James said initially, right? Now it's all about the intents, right? What user intentions are, what they want to do on the platform, right? And as Josh said, I think now it just developers don't even need to think about, because that's the constraint you're seeing in real life, right? As a developer, I don't want to build or some new chain altogether because I know bringing liquidity on that chain is very difficult, right? Whatever tech I build, however the good that tech is, right? It's a very big task for me to bring a liquidity on that a new chain, whichever I'm building right now. And that's where the developers get constrained, even though the chain that they want to use or whatever the use case, maybe take an example of, we keep talking about gaming chain out there, right? Gaming chain, I personally think we are still not there, right? Because we have always been constrained because the games have to use the chains which are already there because the liquidity exists over there. If they want their players to use that their game or so, they want people to have liquidity on the chain existing, right? And they don't take that risk of creating a new chain altogether, which is very isolated in itself, right? And that's where now, as Josh also said, I think it just, maybe take that gaming example, I can now take that risk of building a new chain altogether which supports my use case over there, because now I don't need to worry about how the users are going to bring the liquidity which is maybe, let's say, existing on Arbitrum or Base or any other chains out there which that user has been using in the past. They can just use my chain or my dApp, whichever this new L2 have built on my dApp on, and in one click they would be able to access their funds which is lying on any chain and just get started, right? So that's a very primitive building block which now solves for any chain to access liquidity across the entire ecosystem where the user funds are. They can just request, and the 763 just makes that user experience so seamless at the background. I don't even feel like that there were multiple chains involved, which we do right now in the today's world where the bridges are involved. So that just completely goes away, and that just becomes a very good experience for the user. And hence the developers would be willing to take that risk of creating something new altogether without worrying about whether I should be using just existing chains and put it on my tab, or think something very risk averse in that stuff. Yeah.
James, you wanna go next? Add to it.
Yeah, you both covered it. Pratik and Josh covered it very well. Maybe the only other take I would add is if we fast forward, let's just pretend we've solved abstraction, interoperability, modularity. It's all solved, and we have this very seamless experience. I start to think about what that means for the developers and what they can build. It means we're going to see a whole surge of consumer apps that are very easy to use, that are very seamless. We're already starting to see that. I don't know if you all have played with Rodeo by the Foundation team. That those folks have created this new SocialFi app where you're scrolling as if you're scrolling on Instagram, and if you like the post you see, you collect it with a single click. Now that's constrained just to one chain today. Imagine if you didn't have to think about what chain it is, and it's every chain. And now it's monetizing the creator economy in a new way to think about social apps where likes become a monetary exchange, and revenue becomes based on how good your content was. Was your content entertaining? Did I laugh at your video on TikTok? Well, that means I can collect it and actually contribute to your success and own a piece of that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think once you remove all these crazy barriers, developers have freedom to build consumer apps, and users have freedom to just interact on chain as if they're interacting just like online. And I think it's a really fun spot. We could probably stay there and daydream all day, like with our head in the clouds around like what could that look like. I'm actually really excited because I think us four and many others are going to be building that future.
Amazing. Agreed. So, there are many users who are on, like developers who would be watching this. They would be just beginning with Web3, and some maybe like core in the ecosystem, since the entire ecosystem is based on predominantly contributing to the growth of mutual success. Like James, like how can James, Josh, Pratikla, how can people contribute in building 7683 as a newbie, and how can core people currently contribute in current ecosystem? Like it can be 7683, it can be beyond. Like what are your advice for contributors, both early stage and matured ones in blockchain? What should they be doing now? Anyone of you can begin first.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is kind of going along with the social consensus aspect of the answer I gave to the last question. Actually, trying to be an early adopter or try out these new protocols, things like Across, that are really pushing the boundaries of what we can do with interoperability and chain abstraction in Web3, like the Octa wallet. Use these applications. Using these applications helps push forward the industry by providing useful user metrics, offer feedback. I think things like this can be extremely valuable ways to contribute with the limited time, resources, and knowledge that folks with expertise outside of Web3 can offer.
James, do you want to add to that?
I think the number one thing is a standard becomes a standard when it's adopted by the masses. We actually, just yesterday, I updated the 7683 website to reflect the new number. We have over 50 who have committed to saying, yeah, we believe 7683 is the future, Intense is the way forward. We've got a lot of folks who are saying this should be the standard. So if you're a new builder, a new developer, you have a fun, crazy idea for a new app to bring to the space, using 7683 is one of the biggest ways you can help contribute to the ecosystem. Beyond that, I think there's lots of room for continuing on kind of this abstraction, interop, kind of seamless cross-chain experiences that maybe 7683 doesn't solve all of them, but there are needs. Wallet abstraction is one of those needs. I think we all have, I don't even know how many wallet apps I have installed on my phone. Like we all have many different kind of places that we interact. And I think the way that we move forward is when that becomes more simple too. And smart wallets are starting that process. More and more people are innovating there. So yeah, that would be my biggest thing. I think if you're a builder in this space, use Intense, use 7683. First off, it will make your life easier. It will make your user experience easier, but then you'll be joining 50 plus other massive teams who are also saying this is the way forward. And then if you're innovating beyond that, like if you're innovating beyond Intense and bridging, but in other areas where this fragmentation is felt, reach out to us. Like we're always looking for more people to join arms with and to continue on this mission of unifying Ethereum and eventually unifying the blockchain.
Amazing. Pratik, do you want to add something?
Yeah. So I would say there are like almost three verticals which just opens up in terms of, if you just ask me about developers, what they can do with 7683. One can be, I would say, improve 7683 further, right? Maybe add more things onto it. How do you manage more risk, more controls over there? What things you can add on 7683 which makes it even more scalable? That is the first thing, right? Second thing would be maybe expanding 7683 to other ecosystems, right? Which is a very clear need that we're going to see. Of course, we are trying to unify Ethereum with 7683 right now. But as we said, it's never Ethereum versus Solana or never Ethereum versus whatever that is, right? We want to cover entire spectrum with it. Whichever ecosystem is gaining traction, people want to use or in good tabs building onto it, it should be able to cover that, right? So there's a huge opportunity on expanding 7683 right now to other ecosystems so that people don't get again siloed by the ecosystem now, that Ethereum ecosystem, I'm Ethereum user or Ethereum ecosystem user, but I'm a blockchain or Web3 user, right? So that's the second thing. And third thing, as James and Josh, I think it's a great opportunity for anyone to now build using any experience that they want using 7683 at the background, right? As we keep talking, it's just intents that people need to build, or whatever use cases they had in mind, which was very difficult, or they're constrained by the liquidity movements out there, which was pretty tricky, right? Now I can build all those consumer apps in a very easily, I would say, to just begin with, for my user experience to be solved with. I think that's where we are very bullish at Octo, because that's what we're seeing completely aligned from our perspective in terms of that abstraction is the way that developers will start building, and the users will feel that everything is just omnichannel experience for them, right? Starting from 7683 and then putting on that top of wallet abstraction, and of course very bullish on the Pectra update which is coming in, which will solve for a lot of the wallet abstraction sort of stuff, right? So just integrating all those three stuffs together and building that amazing experiences which we all have been craving about, or we have keep shouting about, that consumer apps will get built on blockchain. But now is the moment. I think somebody quoted that, and I would say it's like literally that iPhone movement which we had in times of mobiles, where the iPhone disrupted the entire industry and how the mobile phones were used. And we are at that stage right now in that crypto where actually the wallet experience or the usage of blockchain is completely gonna change forever. How we used to think, how it, like, we have adopted that it is difficult, that you have to perform three steps for doing an action, and we have adopted to it that that's how it is. But ideally it should not be, right? That's what iPhone did. That completely changed from the basic, that how you even imagine things should ideally be functioning. And that's where we are right now, and those experiences can be built on top of that, which were not completely possible earlier, or very difficult. So very bullish and very excited about what developers can contribute and take this far away, and actually completely build those consumer apps which we have been talking about and build over here.
That's amazing. This brings me to the last section of this stream. It's just thanks a lot, guys, for joining me. But before you guys leave, I want to know personally from each one of you what you guys are bullish about in 2025. What you are bullish about in 2025, James, about Across, Josh, what are you bullish about on Neithermind and the industry, Pratik, obviously what you are bullish on Octo. So any one of you can go first. Yeah. And what's coming up next? Why should people be excited to look up to that update? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'll keep it short because there's so many things we could talk about what we're working on at Across. The reason I'm bullish on this team is, well, the team itself. Like this group of folks, I've never met a group of builders who are so passionate about this single kind of unified mission of unifying Ethereum. So what I'm bullish on for 2025 is picking this fight that says we should not be dealing with such a fragmented ecosystem. It's not sustainable. And it's like every other day there's a new L2 launching, and now L3s are launching. Like there's so much fragmentation. So I'm really bullish on having the commitment from many teams, and also the excitement and kind of the brain power behind it to move this forward on the Across side. In the space largely, I'm really excited to see mass adoption happening slowly, but slowly at first, and it feels like the all at once is coming. Like it feels like we're rounding that corner. We're seeing a lot of institutional adoption of crypto. We're seeing, I mean, I remember the first time I bought XRP, when I bought Ripple the first time back in 2016, and then couldn't do anything with it for years because of all and now like it's on every headline again. Like that's another signal that says like there's more mass adoption, more institutional adoption. I'm bullish to see what it looks like for us to actually change the way the financial system works, because we're rounding that corner, and I think the all at once is just about to happen. So that's what I'm bullish on.
Josh, do you want to go next?
Sure. So always super excited about all the different things that we're working on at Nethermind, from our core engineering on the Nethermind client that I believe has 40% share on Ethereum, to like our cryptography research team, to our consensus research, to what we do on various different ecosystems across the ecosystem, across the Web3 industry. And I think that bringing that all of that manpower to bear on this problem of unifying Ethereum that James has eloquently described is really exciting for this year and next. I think that this scalability has been mostly solved. We have very cheap transactions on L2 now. That wasn't true a number of years ago, and now this is kind of the final step to I think what's necessary for mass adoption. And the kind of final institutional adoption that we need to see over the coming years is this kind of unification that needs to happen. And so really excited to be building with another Mind team, with the Cross team, with the Octo team to make this happen.
Amazing. Pratik?
I think we at Octo, I think at least I personally feel that we are at that moment when everything is gonna happen at once, right? And we won't even feel like that. It was always in that making. We had all those ingredients which are required now to make it happen, right? Till now we have been just always talking about building silos and silos. Now it's the time we have been talking about unifying the things together and actually think about the user and not just talk about the tech or the infra out there, right? So that is a movement. I think now we are there, sort of like we have those recipes in place, we have those ingredients now, and just about taking those actions and just unifying everything and just take it in exponential in a very heated manner so that people actually then we are able to onboard them. And with institutions coming in, with people adopting, taking a positive approach towards that, with a lot of changes across institutions in US, with new assuming new SEC, etc., everything comes in, right? So it just changes perception a lot for the other countries as well, right? Specifically, I would talk about India and the geographies, which take a lot of inspiration from how the things are in US. So I see a lot of those things coming into other geographies where people become more and more adoptable and more positive towards accepting things, built on the blockchain, on the Web3 way. And that's where we have been very bullish into building things which can get the mass adoption now at place, right? So all those ingredients, I would say compliance has always been that big blocker in terms of expanding things out there. Of course, the tech and infra and the unifying were there, but now we are at the place that everything just has happening together, and we can see that happening. And if that happens and that triggers together, it's not sparks now; it's actually a fire that we can create. So that's where we are. Let's see. I think very bullish about that. Yeah.
Very well said.
Should we should ask you the same question, Kushagra. You should answer that too. What are you bullish on?
So I've been in industry from past 10 to 11 years. Like I've seen this industry grow from IRC channels to like the craze, meme kind craze in the industry. Like this is totally insane. So we have seen the ICO era, everything, but being 10 11 years in crypto, I don't the currently standing right now here technology wise, I feel the most matured in competing with anyone. Uh, Always in past bull runs we knew this is pumping because this is new, but without having a confidence on the technology, because so always in the back of my mind I always used to feel, why would someone want to go from a superior user experience to an underwhelming experience? And I like being a core believer of decentralization, trustlessness, ecosystems. I knew this was a better tech, but the answer for adoption was not coming in my head. So right now I feel very matured in terms of technology. I'm very bullish on AI. I'm very bullish on Deepin as a use case. I'm very bullish on RWS use case. I really think we can build better technology both in Web 2 and Web 3 world using the shared economy resources Web 3 has now created. And this I am more confident about now. Like this was always the dream to reach, but I feel confident now. So that I'm most bullish on. I'm bullish more on technology than anything else. Yeah. So yeah, so that brings us to the end. Yeah, James, you wanna say something?
No, I was just gonna say I love that answer, and I just wanted to like give all three of you kudos. Like I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think if this is indicative of the people who are working on this mission of unifying Ethereum, we're gonna be moving on to the next problem pretty soon because we'll have solved this, and I'm really excited. Very, if I'm gonna answer the question, I'm bullish on you three, and I'm bullish on what we're all building together.
Same. Like I think for Eat Denver we should have a 7683 roll call. At
Yeah,
least.
well, this is a great. You'll get an invite. We're gonna host a unifying Ethereum kind of happy hour event, so you'll all get an invite, and it'll be our secret cabal.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks a lot, guys. Enjoyed every bit of this conversation. So happy to have you guys on today's stream. Would love to talk more on these topics. And like so amazing to host you all. Thanks a lot, guys, for being part of this.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Josh. It's really nice talking to you guys. Thank you so much.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.